It hasn't been that long since Generation 8 and the release of Corviknight, the steel-type bird that took over Skarmory in the OU tier, making it drop down to UU. This is because Corviknight was able to do its role much better, becoming bulkier overall with a better move pool, especially with the addition of U-turn, its mirror armor ability, as well as still having the move Roost for solid recovery. It seemed almost like Mega Skarmory, and while sure Skarmory then could be left to defog or do spikes, well, Corviknight for starters can do defog, so that's not needed, but more importantly, Ferrothorn and Generation 8 could do the spikes job better, equally if not better, and thus removing the dire need for Skarmory within the tier, especially since getting rid of hazards wasn't all that hard, so having Skarmory just for spikes while Ferrothorn can do much more than spikes just didn't make that much sense. Corviknight just outclasses every which way, and for many players, it was seen as the turning point for what was assumed as a downfall for Skarmory. However, Generation 9 seemed to revive this UU bird's career, and now it's even considered better than its arch rival Corviknight in a span of just one generation. What exactly happened, and why is this bird suddenly so good? Before we answer that question, if you guys enjoyed this video today and want to see more competitive Pokemon content just like this in the future, be sure to subscribe, as that lets me know you guys want more of this. Anyways, thank you, and thank you all for the recent support I've gotten lately, and let's get back to the video. Since the start of Generation 9, dating back a little over a year now, which, wow, I feel old. But regardless, one of the most prominent Pokemon we have seen in OU history has to be Gholdengo. Gholdengo is a Pokemon that has a unique ability of Good as Gold, which blocks status moves like Defog from being used. In addition, Gholdengo's ghost typing naturally blocks rapid spin play as well. With both in consideration, hazards have been a key centralizing part since the dawn of this generation, and over the past couple of months too, it has only increased with the advent of new Pokemon such as Hisuian Samurai with Cease's Edge, Sticky Webs with Bombi, more spikes users like Gliscor, etc. This particular centralizing effect has had a limbo feel for Corviknight, which prides itself in being an efficient defogging wall for many OU teams in the past. One of the key features for this bird has been blocked or basically hard for it to achieve as easily as before. Now the only thing it now can do for teams is be that body pressing pivot wall that it can still do really efficiently at this standpoint. That being said though, it still found itself struggling against other new walls in tier, specifically talking about Dondozo, which with its unaware ability completely broke any hope Corviknight had to be for some sort of offensive pressure it could provide if it was on the opposing side. Dondozo is one of the bulkiest Pokemon within the tier, and with Corviknight's offensive kit geared towards more physical play, this was not a match made in heaven at all. With the release of new Pokemon though, as well as Hisuian Samurai, this limbo problem began to be a more glaring issue even further because Hamrod's signature move deals not only solid dark type damage towards Corviknight, but it also in addition sets up spikes. In turn, although Corviknight can come in to predict those spikes, it will be taking hefty damage before it can get potentially a defog off or stop it in its tracks, which then you could play around with, either firing off another Cease's Edge for more damage or switching out to Gholdengo, completely ruining Corviknight. Both offensively and defensively, Corviknight was starting to feel the heat as a staple in the OU tier. And now with the release of the Indigo Disk DLC, this problem has been even more of a headache as its old rival of Skarmory has been released. Now, it is true, Skarmory still shares a lot of those same similar problems. However, Skarmory has more tools up its sleeve to combat this plaguing issue. For starters, with many physical attackers being prevalent in the tier, such as Meowscarada, Great Tusk, King Gambit, etc., its huge physical defense stat has actually been coming more times in clutch more than Corviknight's. Although Skarmory has worse abilities in comparison to Corviknight on the surface level, Skarmory has two significant moves that make it better than Corviknight as of this moment: Spikes and Whirlwind. Spikes is a hazard move that Skarmory has access to, and remember when I mentioned Gholdengo earlier? Well, unlike in Generation 8 where it was common for hazards to be removed, thus Skarmory's role slowly diminished, in Generation 9, hazards have seen a 110% uptick in usage, which drastically increases the viability of Skarmory in the tier already this early on. Corviknight, unlike in Generation 8 where it didn't care about being a hazard user, is starting to bite back in comparison to Skarmory because at least, even though yes, Skarmory does get walled by Dondozo, Gholdengo, etc., it at least in that absence can get up spikes and be useful for at least a turn rather than being stuck in a limbo state for most of the time on the battlefield. Whirlwind is the second key pivotal move in its rise because Whirlwind allows Skarmory to switch out opponents through the field of play. If there are hazards on the opponent's side, essentially you can do solid hazard damage and keep switching out Pokemon in and out, which will get annoying really fast because you can get easy chip damage through this way. Alternatively, it also serves to switch out Pokemon that can't do much against it, such as Dondozo, and can also get rid of setup Pokemon like Contrary, Stellaris, and Type and Namorous, which has been going insane throughout the tier. And most likely, you're guaranteed 9 times out of 10 to get a Whirlwind or Spikes off due to its sturdy ability. Sturdy, which I know, I mentioned that these abilities weren't as good as Mirror Armor, but for Skarmory and its specific case, Sturdy has been actually really good because it performs some level of utility before it being thrown out if it had to be. For example, if a booster energy Pokemon like Iron Boulder was running through your team, you can send out this Pokemon to take care of it and switch it out safely. This is far better than already whatever Corviknight had to offer in the metagame, as Skarmory's utility is more optimized for this hyper-offensive hazard-filled metagame. Skarmory really fits well with other defensive Pokemon like Alomomola, Dirge, or Tinglu, which can cover up its other weaknesses pretty well. A common thing I've seen being talked about though is that hazards are its only thing, and then thus shouldn't it just drop to UU? And my answer would be that hazards just aren't its entire personality. It's a huge part, don't get me wrong, but with that same mentality, Corviknight should not be an OU, because this steel and flying type bird cannot do hazards, let alone get rid of them. Skarmory though can at least do hazards, and in addition as a steel and flying type Pokemon, there is no definitive evidence that at this moment in time, it doesn't have much more tools to be equipped with this to handle the metagame than Corviknight. If anything, out of the two steel and flying type birds, Corviknight will be more likely to drop down to UU simply because it is in a more limbo state than Skarmory and has been for like a couple months, if not for almost an entire year, and it's struggling to find a role on teams consistently compared to Generation 8. Again, it will be interesting to see where the meta takes both of these Pokemon, but as of right now, this is my 2 cents on these two birds. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and thank you to my members for their continued support. If you wish to support me even further, the links to my YouTube membership and Patreon are down below. Comment down below the bird emoji, join the Chompy Discord, and until next time, thanks for watching as always.